Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. It is Mike's Talks and Thoughts here. Back again with another video for you guys, and today this is a video that I've been looking forward to do for a long time now, and it is going to be the debate of which TV show is better, Freaks and Geeks or Undeclared. Both of these were one season shows. One was created by Paul Feig and the other was created by Judd Apatow. But Judd Apatow kind of worked on both of the shows, and they're both considered cult classics of their time. They are awesome shows, and I wanted to debate which one is better. They are very similar. They have a lot of similar actors and actresses that appear on both shows, and they're both very, very similar and are very compared with each other. I've seen both shows, and I want to give you a review of which one is better. But before I get started here, I would like to take a moment and thank each and every one of you who has hit that subscribe button or shown support on my channel. I recently just hit 100 subscribers, and for me that was a really big deal. I just started this channel for something fun to do and something to connect with more of a community, and I have to thank each and every one of you for showing your support. If you could do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and like button and keep this grind going, it'd be greatly appreciated. The more subs that I get and the more likes I get, the more passionate I am to make videos for you guys. Now we're going to be using 5 different sets of criteria in order to decide which show is better. First, I'm going to be talking about the setting. That is basically where does the show take place, or where is it set in, and which one is better. The second one is going to be plot, so talking about the storylines that go on in the show, or any problem or solution in the show would be considered plot. Third is going to be the characters. How well are the characters on the show? Which show has the better characters? The fourth criteria is going to be consistency. How consistent was the show throughout its run in the one season that it had? How consistent were each of the episodes with each other? And lastly is going to be comedy/drama for the series. They're both kind of considered a comedy and drama mix. So which one was the funnier and had the most dramatic moments and did that in the better aspect there? But yeah, so first here we're going to be starting out with Freaks and Geeks. Freaks and Geeks was a show that aired from 1999 to 2000. It was only one season, and has definitely gained a lot of traction nowadays with its hit on Netflix. It became a hit on Netflix, and that's how a lot of people discover the show afterwards, and the cast was amazing in it. So yeah, Freaks and Geeks was a show that it aired the episodes out of order. So that was one of the reasons that a lot of people detect or lead to that it was only one season long show, because the quality was not bad. They just aired the episodes out of order. They were airing them at wrong times or different time slots, and everyone just got confused. That's why it kind of got canceled while I was on the air. But yeah, let's dive in here to the cast first. So first here we have the character of Lindsay Weir, played by Linda Cardellini. Now she is a great actress. Of course, she's known for playing roles in like the Scooby-Doo movies and in a lot of other projects as well. So she was a great actress for the show. She is tied in with the freaks of the show. The other freaks include Nick, who is played by Jason Siegel, Daniel Desario, played by James Franco, Ken Miller, played by Seth Rogen, and Kim Kelly, played by Bussy Phillips. Those were the main characters that were involved in the freaks of the show. They were considered freaks, and that was kind of their name or their group in high school. This show takes place in high school, so we'll get to that more in the setting portion. Now moving in here to the geeks, we have John Francis Daly, who played Sam Weir, and we also have Neil, who was played by Sam Levine, and we have Martin Starr, who played Bill on the show. Both were great. Those were the 3 main characters who were a part of the Geeks group. So the Freaks were with Lindsay, and the Geeks were with Sam. So the two main characters are their family. Lindsay was a few years older than Sam in the show. I believe it was 2 or 3 years older. She was a junior or a senior, I believe, and he was a freshman in high school at the time. Let's now move into the cast of Undeclared. So the cast of Undeclared is going to be as follows. So the main character for the Undeclared cast is going to be Stephen Karp, who is played by Jay Baruchel. Of course, he kind of fills in as Lindsay. In Lindsay's role, Lindsay was the main character on Freaks and Geeks, and Jay plays the main character Steven on Undeclared. But some other notable cast members are Carla Gallo as Lizzie on the show. We have Charlie Hunnam, who plays Lloyd on the show, a British guy coming to America. You have Tim Sharp, who plays Marshall on the show. Again, with the crossover dynamic here, which I will get into in a little bit before we get started with the review, we have Seth Rogen on this show, who plays the character Ron. Next here you have London Wainwright, who played Hal. This would be Steven's dad on the show. And lastly here for the Undeclared main cast, you have Rachel, who was played by Monica Kina. So those were the main cast members of Undeclared and Freaks and Geeks. So I wanted to give that a synopsis before I get started here. And along with that, like I mentioned before, Seth Rogen was on both shows, but there was many actors who appeared on both shows, and I would like to give those names out and also tell you what part they played on both shows. So first here we have Sam Levine. Like I mentioned earlier, he played a main character of Neil on Freaks and Geeks, along with playing a frat leader or the main guy in a frat in Undeclared in the episode where Steven is looking to join a frat. Next we have Jason Siegel, who is also part of both shows. He played Nick on Freaks and Geeks and Eric on Undeclared. Like I mentioned earlier, Seth Rogen as well. He played Ken Miller, and then he played Ron on Freaks and Geeks and Undeclared. So two main cast roles from Seth Rogen. He's the only one on here who is a main cast member on both shows. So very, very nice to see that. Next up here, we have another member of the Geeks who was Martin Starr, who played Bill on Freaks and Geeks, along with also playing Theo, who was Steven's childhood friend who came in and visited into town in one of the episodes. Next here, we have Natasha Melanic, who played Cindy on Freaks and Geeks, who was a love interest of Sam throughout most of that run, along with a sorority girl, and played a love interest of the character Lloyd in Undeclared. Next here for more notable characters on both shows, we have Lizzie Kaplan, who played Sarah on Freaks and Geeks, who was kind of a love interest or a person who connected with Nick on the show. And then she was also a girl who was described as a beautiful girl on Undeclared. Next here, another main cast member from the Freaks and Geeks group, we have Bussy Phillips, who played, of course, Kim Kelly, like I mentioned earlier. But on Undeclared, she played actually a girlfriend to Ron in the series. Our next character here, we have Sarah Hagen, and she played the infamous Millie on Freaks and Geeks, of course. That was a very iconic role for her. And she was also kind of a background character on Undeclared, playing a character named Jordana, and she was a college freshman. And the last notable cast member that was on both shows that I wanted to talk with you guys about would be Alan Covert. Now, Alan Covert was someone who was on both shows, and he played a guy who was in the Beers and Weirs episode kind of as a background character, mainly talked with Ken's character on the show, who was played by Seth Rogen, like I mentioned earlier. And then in the Undeclared episode that he was in, he played Adam Sandler's assistant, which is a very popular and well-known episode of the series. Undeclared was a show that aired from 2001 to 2003, was after Freaks and Geeks, and along with Freaks and Geeks, the episodes were also ran out of order. But yeah, let's get into the 5 criteria that I mentioned earlier that I will be discussing both of these shows with and deciding which one is better. So first here, let's talk about the setting of both of these shows. Now, for Freaks and Geeks, this was a show that was set in the 1980s in Michigan, which of course I can appreciate, and it was set in a high school environment, so very high drama environment there and very relatable. While Undeclared was in a college, of course, a college campus, and the reason why the show was called Undeclared was the main character, Steve, and his major was undeclared. Now, the positives for both of these, for Freaks and Geeks, starting first, of course, is a very relatable setting. Of course, everyone had experiences in high school and can really relate back to that. And I think it's always a safe bet when going at setting of a show. But I also really liked the Undeclared setting because college, they have a lot more room to work with. And, everyone who's been to college kind of has that dorm experience or kind of party life experience. You experience that throughout the show, and you learn about the relationship these characters they meet for the first time in college. Unlike Freaks and Geeks, it seems like these characters have kind of known each other for years, while these characters, they're meeting for the first time. You see when they meet for the first time, and it's very relatable, making new friends in college, and just the setting around it. I personally like it more. I like the college setting more than the high school setting. So for that reason, I'm going to be giving Undeclared the first point in this battle. For the Freaks and Geeks versus Undeclared, for the setting portion, it is going to go to Undeclared. Next up here, we have the plot of the show. Now, neither of these shows had a really consistent or really over the top or really crazy plot. The Freaks and Geeks plot basically follows Lindsay's journey with trying to fit in, and Sam's journey as well. Lindsay mainly throughout the show struggles with trying to fit in with the rest of the Freaks. She's kind of like an outsider and wants to try and do her best to fit in. And she always has to come up with solutions for the group. For example, Nick, played by Jason Siegel, has a lot of trouble with trying not to be a drummer, and he kind of loses a lot of his confidence, and then Lindsay kind of helps him back up with that. She kind of helps Daniel in school when he is struggling, and she helps Kim out as well when she's having problems at home with her family. So she's a very nice and relatable character, helping out a lot of her friends. And that's mainly the trials and tribulations that you see. The story kind of ends off with Lindsay. She's trying to move into that phase of kind of being an outsider and not being who she was at the beginning. In the beginning of the show, you find out that she's, a goody two-shoes, and she likes to kind of stick to the rules and not kind of go off the rails. But in the final scene, you see Lindsay going out on a trip with Kim somewhere out in another state, and she was telling her parents that she was going to be doing a event for her high school. I believe it was debate or mathlete, something around that nature, and she really has a nice development there. I like how the plot takes it. We don't really see what happens after that because that is where the show ended. They never got a second season, but that was a very strong way to kind of show Lindsay's growth and development throughout the show. So for me, I really do like the Freaks and Geeks plot. Now for the Undeclared plot, I really thought they were going to delve more into, Steven trying to find his way and find a major, as the title suggests, but it is mainly more of relationship. Is mainly the main plot of the series is Steven and Lizzie, who is the character he's been trying to kind of get with since the start of the show, kind of trying to get together. And I feel like they definitely have some hits and misses throughout this. I definitely still like it. I think that Steven does a really good job of kind of trying to get himself out there while also being very shy as well. But for me, the plot for this story just kind of went all over the place with Lizzie's boyfriend, Eric, who was played by Jason Siegel. But this plotline kind of goes off the rails with Steven and Lizzie. You have Eric, who is Lizzie's boyfriend, and he kind of tries to get in the middle of things, and then they kind of break up. It's kind of all over the place. That is mainly the main plot of the series. You have a lot of side plots as well, of course, with a lot of episodes with Lloyd and Ron trying to make money off the stock market. You have Marshall trying to build a relationship with Rachel throughout the series. And for me, it's just really too convoluted and kind of in a bunch that I feel like the Freaks and Geeks side has a much more consistent and structured story and plot to it. So for that reason, I'm going to be giving the second point and the first point of the series to Freaks and Geeks. So now it is a 1-1 tie. But now we're going to be moving into the characters portion, my favorite part of both of these shows. I think they really have strong casts that play a really, really great job and do a really, really good job in the show. So first here you have Lindsay, who is very great, but I think what really makes this show is the characters that are surrounded by her. So Nick, Daniel, and Ken are amazing. I think they have a lot of great funny moments, and they're really kind of cool dudes while also kind of being douchebags. And they always make me laugh, especially I think Nick is probably the funniest of them. His relationship with Lindsay, he kind of tries to get in her life, and it kind of ends up living there at points, which is really funny. And Nick's relationship with his dad is very out there. But my favorite part of the characters is going to be the geek side. I prefer the geeks over the freaks because I think that Bill, Sam, and Neil, especially Bill and Neil, are some of the funniest characters. I love the episode when they go out for Halloween. That is really great. Of course, they have to deal with bullies in school, and Bill and Neil are really great when it comes to that aspect. And just for me, very, very iconic characters in my mind. Moving in here to Undeclared, I like these characters, but they're nothing really special. The other characters really stand out. They have a more personality to them, and they kind of stand out more as unique, while these characters are kind of just normal people you see every day, which is good because you can relate to that. But kind of the only thing is Steven, is kind of a loner, you find out. Lizzie's just kind of trying to find her way. Lloyd is pretty much only interpreted as a ladies' man who's from England. You have Marshall, who is just someone who, really struggles with kind of getting his feelings out there. You have Ron, who kind of just is like that normal college type. Rachel, who's kind of trying to find herself in the party scene while also being grounded. Just very, very not unique or anything special characters. While they are likable characters, they're not anyone's who I dislike or don't root for. They are just characters that a little bit too bland for me in my liking. I like characters that are either really good at bringing the comedy or the drama out, which I feel like the Freaks and Geeks cast does better. So for that reason, Freaks and Geeks is going to be getting this next point, and it's going to be a score of 2-1 in favor of Freaks and Geeks. Now the next portion here we have is consistency, and I think consistency is a very important part to shows. You got to have a good consistent storyline or episodes that kind of keep me intrigued and know that you're going to put out something quality each time I watch. With Freaks and Geeks, I feel like it's kind of all over the place. Like I kind of mentioned how Undeclared has kind of an all over the place sort of plot, and where the direction the story is going, I was very unsure of. But with this one's the same thing. Freaks and Geeks has a lot of great episodes. Like Smoochin' and Moochin' is my favorite episode. But my least favorite episode is Chokin' and Token. That is one I do not like. It's a very missed episode for me. I know people do like it, but I just felt like it kind of crossed boundaries or lines. With the peanut allergy, of course, that was the main part that I did not like about the episode. Kind of crossing a line there between bully and student, something that you just don't do. And For me, that is the reason why Freaks and Geeks is really great, but I feel like the episode quality and consistency is all over the place. With Undeclared, however, I feel like each and every time I watched the episode, I knew what I was going to get. I knew I was going to get a solid episode, nothing too crazy and out there and outlandish, while also being rounded and very, very secure in not getting a horrible episode. There was never really an episode where I was like, oh wow, I really hate this episode, or I was like, this episode is really trash compared to all the other ones. For me, I definitely have my favorite episodes. My favorite episode of the series is the Truth or Dare. But when I come to think about my worst episode on the show, I can't really think of it, just because they are all pretty consistently there. So for that reason, I'm going to be giving the consistency point to Undeclared. So we're going to be heading into a 2-2 tie here, with the last round being comedy / the drama aspect. Now for the comedy aspect, Freaks and Geeks hits it head on right here. Their characters can be so funny and so great in the stories they're put in, while also being very good at dramatic moments. Of course, with Nick and his dad, a very dramatic moment in the series. When Neil finds out about the affair with his dad is a very good acting by Sam Levine. Of course, when Daniel finds out that, if he doesn't get his grades up or doesn't get his act together, it's going to be going wrong for him. With Kim's relationship with Daniel, it's very, very dramatic at points. And her relationship with her family, very, very great dramatic moments in the series. Of course, with Bill as well, he has to deal with his mom and getting with the coach of the school. Very, very relatable in the aspect that you deal with these everyday problems, and the way that these actors portrayed these characters on the show and portrayed the comedy and the dramatic aspect was just very great for me. I really enjoyed it. So Freaks and Geeks gets a very big thumbs up for me in that aspect. Now moving into Undeclared. If I'm going based off comedy, I think that Freaks and Geeks is definitely a better show. I definitely laughed more out loud for sure, and I definitely had a lot more jokes I felt like that hit for me in the Freaks and Geeks series. But Undeclared was still great as well. I think my favorite character on the show would have been Lloyd, and I think Lloyd was a great actor. He, of course, Charlie Hunnam in one of my favorite shows, Sons of Anarchy, and he does a really great job, bringing that comedy to the show. Of course, with Ron as well as Seth Rogen, two great characters that bring a lot of humor. But the dramatic moments just did not hit the same for me in this series. I felt like all the dramatic moments were kind of relationships, and I didn't really care that much about Steven and Lizzie's relationship. I cared more about even like Lindsay and Daniel's relationship in Freaks and Geeks, even though they never really had one, or Lindsay and Nick, way more than I cared about Steven and Lizzie's relationship and their kind of building. Some dramatic moments that happened in the series. Of course, when Hal kind of needs to get a new job and Steven's kind of there for him. That was really great, but no, again, nothing really too dramatic that I can think of that really hits over the top for me. So for that reason, Freaks and Geeks is going to be taking the win here with a score of 3-2. Freaks and Geeks is the ultimate winner of the Freaks and Geeks versus Undeclared series. But I hope you guys both check out each of these shows. They are both fantastic, and they're both definitely worth the watch. Only one season long. You will definitely appreciate them. If you like watching shows with a lot of great cast members that went on to do great projects later in their careers and see how they kind of started out, you'll love both of these shows. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and peace out.